So if in fact the party opposite does not have confidence in the government, they will have a chance to prove it. They have until the House rises. Let them listen. I think they should listen to this, Mr. Speaker. They have until the House rises today to table a motion of no confidence in the government. Come on then. And we can have that vote tomorrow. Or if any of the other parties, the smaller parties, fancy a go, they can table that motion and we'll give you the time for a vote.
All right, Shalom. I want to give all praises, honor, and glory to Yahweh Bashem Yahushua. I want to give double honors to the apostles and elders of Great Millstone, because that's where I learned this truth from, through the spirit and power of Yahweh Bashem Yahushua. Yahweh is the true name of the God of Israel. Yahweh Shai is who the world ignorantly calls Jesus Christ, but his one and only true name is Yahweh Shai. And pretty much, I'm going to make this a short, to the point video dealing with the BREXIT situation and how it identifies with biblical prophecy, because the times that we're living in, we're very close to the return of who the world ignorantly calls Jesus Christ, which his true name is Yahushua. And I'm going to show you how, through the spirit and power of Yahweh Bashem Yahushua, by the way of the Bible. Because the Bible is the only book that's accurate, that's explaining all these different things that's happening on the planet Earth. So us as the nation of Israel, all right, the Hebrew Israelite men, which is the seed line of the so-called Negroes, Hispanics, and Native American Indians, our seed line makes up the 12 tribes of the nation of Israel. It's our job to prophesy unto the nations and to declare, what type of times that we're living in, to prophesy, to say something before it happens, and to warn these people. All right. So let's get into it. So this was based off of an article that the brother, I think it was Kassad, he posted this, and it was an excellent article. The water for sharing this article in the chat. But I'm just going to get into it, straight into it. UK to leave the European Union on the 31st of October. All right. Now, why is this so important? How does this identify with the type of times we're living in? How does this situation affect your life if you're not living in the UK or you living somewhere else in the world? How is this going to affect you? I'm going to show you how. It's going to affect everybody. All right. Now, what you have to understand is, in the scriptures, when it mentions the 7 heads and 10 horns, that's referring to NATO. All right. NATO and the EU. Because you have certain nations that's in the EU that's not a part of your NATO. All right. Now, I'm going to show you how this refers to the type of times we're living in. So the 10 horns represent the common market, or the European Economic Community, established in 1958. Today, the EEC is known as the EU, the European Union. All right. And then you have NATO, which is the beast, is made up of 29 different nations. It's probably more by now. So what these nations are starting to understand, and they're coming to the conclusion that we're only a part of NATO to do the bidding of America. This doesn't benefit our country, because America is a tyrant, corporation, a tyrant country. They just run around policing everybody and putting sanctions on everybody. So these nations, they're getting tired of that. And ultimately, this is leading to the whore, which is America, being burnt by fire. Now, look, you have the UK that's about to leave. But look, you also had Turkey that left. If I'm not mistaken, brothers can correct me. You had Germany, they left. And there's a bunch of upcoming referendums that's coming. So let's read a little bit of this article. And I'm going to show you how this BREXIT is in the Bible. And the word BREXIT, it means the withdrawal of the United Kingdom from the European Union. Okay? Now, It says, according to the current legislation, the United Kingdom is entitled to request a 3-month Brexit extension on the 19th of October if a deal is not secured that would maintain trade relations with the EU by the 31st of October Brexit deadline. Britain will pull out from the European Union on October 31st. Hopefully with a deal, UK Finance Minister Sajid Javid told ITV on Monday. Now, this is a quote that he said out of his own mouth. If we cannot strike a deal, I think it is important to leave in any case and leave with no deal. It is not perfect, but it is appropriate that we leave on the 31st, Javid said. At the same time, the minister refused to specify how the government intends to deliver Brexit in a no-deal scenario. The legislation that Parliament has passed, of course, has made things more difficult, but we are clear. Our own policy is completely unchanged. We will be leaving on the 31st, Javid said. So if you want to check out the rest of this article, it's from Sputnik News, and this is the title of it, UK to leave the European Union on the 31st of October. Now, dealing with this situation, this is something that Daniel, that's described in Daniel, the 2nd chapter, all right? And I'm going to show you how. Now, this is Daniel chapter 2, verse 31. And, excuse me if it sounds like, I'm rushing. I wanted to do this video earlier, but, I'm a little busy, so I'm trying to, get this out there real quick. This is Daniel chapter 2, verse. Matter of fact, I'm going to start at, let me see. I'm going to start at verse 30. Daniel 2, verse 30. But as for me, this secret is not revealed to me for any wisdom that I have more than any living, but for their sakes, that shall make known the interpretation to the king, and that thou mightest know the thoughts of thy heart. Because what was happening, Nebuchadnezzar, he had a dream. He had a dream dealing with these the heathen nations that will be ruling before Yahushua comes back and establishes the kingdom of heaven. So he had all these people that was into like witchcraft and sorcery, and they couldn't interpret his dream. The different astrologers in the Babylonian kingdom, the Neo-Babylonian Empire, because Nebuchadnezzar, he was really an Assyrian, all right, and it was really the Neo-Babylonian Empire. But none of his people can interpret it. But of course, Yahweh Ba'Shem Yahushai, he's going to display his power through men. He revealeth his secrets unto his servants the prophets. Amos chapter 3, verse 7. So that's where Daniel comes into the picture. And today, we're going to explain how the Brexit ties into this, dealing with Daniel, the 2nd chapter, which is why I'm reading it. Because you have to link world events and filter it through the scriptures. All right? So this is Daniel 2 and 31. It says, Thou, O king, sawest and beheld a great image. This great image, whose brightness was excellent, stood before thee, and the form thereof was terrible. So this is the image that it's talking about. All right? The head of gold, the breast of silver, the thighs of brass, the legs of iron. And then you have the feet of iron and clay, right? And then you have the rock. Let's continue reading. So the first one, the head, right? Daniel 2 and 32, it says, this image head was of fine gold. Let's talk about the Neo-Babylonian Empire, all right? That's the head of gold, which is referring to what? Nebuchadnezzar, his seed line, kingdom ruler. And then there was going to be a specific point in time where their kingdom was going to fall, and then another nation was going to rise up, as you can see the biblical timelines on the screen. So it says, this image head was of fine gold, his breasts and his arms of silver. Talking about what? The Medo-Persian Empire. As you can see, the Neo-Babylonian Empire, dealing with the head of gold, they ruled from what? 605 BC to 539 BC. And then as you can see, the breast of silver talk about the Medo-Persian Empire, because it was a joint, rulership. The Medo-Persian Empire, they succeeded the Babylonians, right? 539 BC to 331 BC. Let's keep reading. Because we got to understand the type of times we're living in. Everybody is walking around and they don't care because they don't know where exactly, according to the scriptures, the type of times we're living in. We're in the latter days of the latter days. All right. So it says, arms of silver, his belly and his thighs of brass. Talk about the Greek Empire. All right. The Greek Empire from 331 BC to 168 BC. Let's keep going. Verse 33, his legs of iron. Talk about Rome, right? Talk about the ancient Roman Empire. But what you need to understand is the ancient Roman Empire, it was destroyed. It fell. But it came back through something called the Treaty of Rome in the form of America and the EU, the European Union. That's why America, as well as the European Union, their judicial system is based off of what? The ancient Roman law, draconian laws. Why? Because it is the Roman Empire all over again. All right? It's pretty much an extension. So the fact that you've seen the feet of iron and clay, the divided nations, what does it tell you in Matthew chapter 12, verse 26? A nation divided against itself, it cannot stand. Look at the children of Israel, right? When you read 1 Kings, the 11th chapter, start about like the 30th verse on down, what happened? It tells you when you read 1 Kings, the 11th chapter, Solomon, he had a lot of wives, a lot of concubines, 700 wives to be exact, 300 concubines. And then what happened? His concubines, the heathen nation women, the 17 heathen nations, what did they do? He started following after their gods because he was old. All right. When you get old, you become, weaker, like mentally. So the God of Israel he took the kingdom from him. And there was a split in the nation of Israel. A certain amount of tribes went with Jeroboam, a certain amount of tribes went with Rehoboam. Rehoboam was the righteous one. Jeroboam was the wicked one. When you read 1 Kings 11th chapter on down, because it was going to be Rehoboam that takes the throne of Solomon, because the Lord was dealing with Rehoboam. But the point that I'm bringing out is any kingdom or nation that's divided, it's not going to stand for too long. So this is what we're seeing right now. We're seeing the downfall of the so-called white man's empire, the Edomites. All right. And this is why I got this here. Because Rome was what? That was their empire. So this is the type of times we're living in, dealing with the BREXIT. Because the so-called white race, the Edomites, they're ruling all around the world. They're ruling all around the world. That's why I showed you this sign that the apostles of Great Millstone came up with. All right, the 7 heads and 10 horns. This was revealed to them through the spirit and power of Yahweh B'Shem Yahushua. All right. Now reading on. So it says, verse 33, his legs of iron, his feet part of iron and part of clay. And these are the type of times we're living in. All right, this is where we at currently. Because the Neo-Babylonian Empire, that's done. The Medo-Persian Empire, that's done. The Greek Empire, that's done. The ancient Roman Empire was destroyed. So now this is where we're living at. This is it. The scriptures tell you in 2nd Ezra chapter 6, verse 9, what? Esau is the end of the world. Jacob is the beginning of it that followeth. The end of the world is referring to what? The end of the so-called white man's rulership, the Edomite rulership on the planet Earth. All right, that's what the end of the world is. That's all it is. It's not talking about the whole entire earth being destroyed. The scriptures tell you that the earth abideth forever. Even in the Lord's Prayer, what did the Lord say? Roughly paraphrasing, as above, so below. It's going to, just like how you got perfect order in the heavens, you're going to have perfect order on the planet Earth, where the Lord is going to establish his kingdom on the planet Earth. Daniel 2:44. It's right in the same chapter. So this is important. So now we know where we at, according to the scriptures, the type of times we're living in. This is it. There's going to be a global economic collapse. There's going to be a stock market crash. The U.S. dollar is going to collapse. All paper currency is going to collapse. And it's going to be a global economic collapse. Why? Because all these countries have central banks in them. All right? That's ran and owned by the Rothschilds, the central bankers. So they're going to collapse these societies so that what? So they can enforce martial law, FEMA camps, and ultimately, what's the goal of the New World Order? To microchip everybody on the planet Earth. But we know that's not going to happen according to Revelation 20:4, because the elect of the nation of Israel is not going to receive the mark of the beast, which is the RFID chip implant. All right? And there's no repentance if you get the RFID chip implant. There's no repentance. How do I know that? Read Revelation chapter 14, verses 9 through 10. If you take the mark of the beast, which is the RFID chip implant, you're doomed. All right? Now, verse 34, it says, "Thou sawest till that a stone was cut out without hands, which smote the image upon his feet that were of iron and clay, and break them into pieces." All right? And that's the type of times we're coming into. Yahushua is getting ready to come back, and he's getting ready to establish his kingdom. And he's going to come post-World War III. What I mean by post-World War III, I mean that you're going to have the global economic collapse. You're going to have martial law, the FEMA camps, the mark of the beast being implemented. But after the mark of the beast is implemented for a certain period of time, what's going to happen? You're going to have nations launch nuclear missiles here at America and certain parts of the world. What's going to be the end result of World War III? The state of Israel is going to be completely destroyed, but then built up in the kingdom of heaven. And then according to Revelation chapter 18, verse 2, America is going to become a lake of fire. But then once the fire settles, it's going to be a desert. It's going to be a place where desert creatures is going to dwell at. Why? Because the surrounding waters around America is going to dry up, making way for these different type of creatures that dwell in the desert to come over here. So this is the type of times we living in. That's why Revelation 19:12 says what? Yahushua, who the world ignorantly called Jesus Christ, he's going to have many crowns. Because you're going to have all these nations trying to fight against Yahushua when he comes back. It's not just going to be Yahushua, it's going to be Michael the archangel and the legion of angels. A great number of angels. So it says, verse 35, "Then was the iron, the clay, the brass, the silver, and the gold broken to pieces together, and became the chaff of the summer threshing floors, and the wind carried them away, that no place was found for them. And the stone that smote the image became a great mountain, and filled the whole earth." Verse 36, "This is the dream, and we will tell the interpretation thereof before the king. Thou art king, art a king of kings, for the God of heaven have given thee a kingdom, power, strength, and glory." All right? So now let's go to this. This is Revelation chapter 17, verse 16. And the 10 horns, what's the 10 horns? The 10 horns is referring to Belgium, Denmark, France, Italy, Luxembourg, Netherlands, Greece, Ireland, England, West Germany, right? It says, "And the 10 horns which thou sawest," because what you have to understand is you had the ancient Roman Empire version of the 10 horns, but then it came back in this lifetime. But it's not going to be called those names anymore. It says, "In the 10 horns which thou sawest upon the beast," which we know what the beast is NATO. It says, "These shall hate the whore." And who's the whore? America. This is the type of times we're living in. All right? Britain is going to hate the whore and is going to destroy America along with these other nations. Going to launch nuclear missiles at America. Because since Donald Trump has been in office, he has been destroying the relationships that America has built with all these countries throughout all these years. He's destroying all the relationships with them, including the nations that's in NATO or that's in the EU, to the point where what? They're going to burn the whole fire, like it's going to mention. It says, "And these shall hate the whore." Don't these countries hate America? That's why I mentioned, and you could do the research yourself, these nations, they realize, look, we only a part of NATO to do the bidding of America. This does not benefit us at all. It says, and shall make her desolate and naked, and shall eat her flesh and burn her with fire. This is the type of times we're coming in. America is going to be destroyed by thermonuclear fire. Why you think it describes in the book of Revelation that the lake of fire? America is Babylon the Great, also known as Mystery Babylon the Great and the Virgin Daughter of Babylon. It's going to be destroyed by 200 million nuclear missile warheads, according to Revelation chapter 9, verses 16 through 19. This is the type of times we're coming into. This is what this Brexit is going to lead to. It's going to lead to a bunch of nations leaving out of NATO and the EU. All right? It says, verse 17, for the Most High have put in their hearts, meaning their mind, right? And what's a precept to back that up? That there's no free will, that really is the God of Israel controlling everything on the planet Earth. Proverbs chapter 21, verse 1. Proverbs chapter 16, the whole Proverbs 16 chapter, but the main points, Proverbs chapter 16, verses 1 through 4. Then you can skip the verse 9. You got Proverbs 20, 24. There's no such thing as free will. So everything that's happening on the planet Earth, that's happening all by design, according to the will of the God of Israel. All right? See, these Freemasons and these central bankers, they think that they got everything in control, but they don't. That's why their empire is breaking up. If they had control, you think that they will want their empire to be broken up? Of course not. An empire being divided against itself is going to lead to turmoil and destruction of their empire. It says, for the Most High have put in their hearts to fulfill his will and to agree and give the kingdom unto the beast until the words of the Most High shall be fulfilled. All right, so this is where we at, you know, when according to Bible prophecy. All right, we're at the feet of the iron and clay, where you're gonna have these different nations that's a part of EU and NATO. They're gonna start leaving. Shalom.